Greetings, hello, and welcome, everybody, to Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 14. I'm Norman Bolter, and this year we're going to be spending the summer on what's called the Living Overlay System. Now, many of you have heard me talk about the overlay system for a long time. Well, 3 decades. It's a while. And everything has an overlay system. One of the things I want to address first, you see, is that many times in our educational system, learning is to study, gather information, and take a test. Let's take that mindset and open up a door and go, see you later. It's a weed in the garden that's getting in the way of other things that can grow to the point where they'll bear fruit, they'll flower, they'll be in where their life was designed to be. So right away, I want to start with speaking of gardens, of my experience in the yard, working in the yard. My wife, Dr. V, has a huge garden, giant, important in these times, if you can. And I kind of do more of the maintenance work around the yard with certain types of things. And so there's a reason why I'm calling this video 1, a look at overlay 1. And it's more about, well, how does your garden grow? How does your garden grow? Because the more we connect what we do to where else it exists in life, especially into the natural worlds, nature's laws that we're surrounded by all the time, you can't escape them. We feel a different kind of attendance in ourselves, an awareness, fuller feelings. We start to create a different kind of value for what we're doing. So here I am. I had many jobs of pulling a lot of things out of the ground because we wanted to make room in our yard for other types of things because we live in a rural setting. And if you don't take care of the boundaries of your yard, pretty soon everything else that wants to come in will and does. So it's constant maintenance. It's constant maintenance. So here, I spend 2.5 hours in the yard almost every day. And I had to get this honeysuckle out in between all these other plants that we wanted because they're amazing, but they're very viney in themselves. And then there's this other stuff called strangler vine, also known as bittersweet, which are these vines that they're so strong and they grow and they start wrapping around anything and can devour it. Just pull it, smother it. Can take down a tree. So here I am pulling out this bittersweet, these strangler vines, and in an awkward position, and then pulling out this honeysuckle that really we didn't want to be there in the midst of the milkweed and the goldenrod that was growing. And it was really, it felt like a combination of, playing tug of war and then at the same time having to do delicate surgery to get these vines off of the milkweed, which is really an important plant for us. Now, you think, well, why would nature do that? Why would nature grow all this stuff? What's the use of a vine that strangles other things? Well, first of all, this particular vine is an invasive species. Wasn't meant to be here, but a lot of things, because of the cross-pollination, right, literally, of people all over the world and bringing things in, like different kinds of insects and different kinds of flowers and plants and animals and birds and everything, right? You have things that have taken up residence. I guess in a way they're immigrants in themselves. Otherwise, you could look at everyone in the United States and say they're an invasive species. Right? Except for the native peoples that were here. So this is this case all over the world now. But even if it wasn't an invasive species, the honeysuckle wasn't, there's still going to be things you're going to have to take out of a garden because it will smother the things that you want. So it's an amazing look at what it takes to maintain something. A lot of times you hear musicians talk about maintenance practice. So think about that as your garden. Oh, you start to do something. You've planted the seed for something. It starts to grow because of the repetition of your action on it. Well, alrighty. You've now made a plant. In this case, it's called a habit plant. Let's say of creating a lot of tension in your shoulders when you're playing. Then you realize, gosh, other things don't want to grow. And then eventually, after working it long enough, if you're devoted and dedicated enough, you go, wait a minute. Or a teacher might say, those shoulders are getting in the way. The way they're tightening up and all this, it's making your arm not want to move. It's making it harder for you to breathe and all sorts of things. Or you're using your embouchure in a certain kind of way that's not going to have a longevity. Okay? It's going to be a short-lived situation. And so anyone who's serious about their art, not at the level of career, even at the level of career, you have to have a strong maintenance program as a musician, I think. Especially someone who's very, very exposed all the time. Like in a brass section, most people are exposed. String section, I've noticed over the years when I was in an orchestra, BSO, Boston Symphony, that, some people might not be putting in the maintenance work that they need to, and they come to work and they're playing in the giant string section, and the orchestra playing is enough to act as a bit of maintenance because they have to come every day and then play a concert at night. So that happens, but then I see people get injuries. And sometimes injuries are caused by improper maintenance, by not really being attentive, you and your instrument, you and your relationship with the instrument, for example. Outside of an ensemble where things can get kind of like some of my yard was, where this was on top of this was on top of this, and they're all growing together, but not always helping each other grow. So sometimes it's very important to be with your instrument itself. Now, when I was cutting off this strangler vine, all right, from this milkweed, like I said, it was like I had to really be delicate, otherwise I'd cut the milkweed. And it just wrapped and coiled. Now think of how our habits, if we're not careful, this is just instrumentally speaking, let alone about the rest of life, right? They start wrapping around things. We might start to feel more arthritic, or get certain tensions, or develop a stutter as a brass player, or the notes don't want to speak. Are we taking care of our attitude? Are we taking care of what do we need to do to actually keep in that function of playing as well as we can? In a career situation, for example, if you want some longevity, or at the level of your art and discovery of it. So we can see right away that the earth has an automatic robotic system. You put something in the ground, in the right kind of soil, that's going to grow. And sometimes things are put into the soil that you haven't put in. Maybe a little bird comes by and drops something, and all of a sudden you have that. Well, listen. How many things come out of your mouth or in your thoughts that are just because of what you've heard resonating in the atmosphere or around whatever environment you're in, that you actually haven't put any critical thought to? And critical, I mean observant awareness. Well, was that my thought or just someone else is speaking through me? Whether it's in your school situation, your work situation, or when you're on the computer, or listening to the radio, or watching TV, or any other kind of social media stuff, there's so much bombardment this way. And this can be like birds coming by and dropping stuff that maybe you don't want in your garden. All right? So we have a physical level of life, we have a mental, emotional level of life, and we have a deeper level of our life, the essence of our life. Let's call that soul, spirit. And our will is attached to the third overlay in this case. And just for those who maybe have forgotten, there's many ways of looking at the overlay system. And that's, if it's alive, that's what you'll come to. Not just, well, I heard it this way once and then it's that forever. No, if you're working with something, you'll see it also does this and it goes into this one and that one and this way, and you see the whole working of that trio. The robotic automatic system, our habit, life, and foundations, our skill and choice, second overlay system work. The more that we know and the more that we start to do through practice, the greater skill we develop and therefore more choice. Right? And then where does that come from? Where is it going? What is our aim, our purpose, which is more third overlay? That's one view, and there's many. But I'll tell you, when I was out in that yard pulling and yanking stuff, I thought, yeah, look at the maintenance it takes. Look at the maintenance it takes to keep up your art. What was my attitude when I was pulling out these things? First of all, I was thanking them for their service. It's just that we have other plans at this point in our time. And there's a lot of other places where you can go, and I have to take you guys out. I'm sorry about interrupting your lives, but other lives are more important right now. And so I was just amazed at the tenacity, amazed at this process that we live in. And sometimes we take for granted we live on a planet that's in constant maintenance, isn't it? And part of maintenance is taking out what you don't need and putting in what you do need. For example, how could a gardener not know certain things in order to keep their garden healthy? They'd have to know the nature and health of the soil. Well, I've taught for, let's see, how long has it been? 54 or 55 years now. I can tell when someone's with me whether they're going to be receptive to the seeds that I'm going to put into them. I can tell whether that soil is a dry desert, or at least one that needs a little more moisture, or one that has too much and it needs to come in a bit. And it's amazing how things can change. So just because I say, oh boy, everything I say is just bouncing off this person, it's amazing. All of a sudden, that person can come in and something made a little crack. And it wants to come in. Or someone just, will say, I don't understand what you're saying. I'll say it in a different way, and I'll explain why I say things the way that I do. Because music is a living thing, no different than life, no different than the gardener. Okay? Or the farmer. Plant and all the things you need to know, the climate. So I'd go into the rehearsal sometimes. And I'm not saying I always provided the best in climate for the orchestra rehearsals myself. Right? At certain times. But you walk in and go, ooh, what's the atmosphere like? What's the climate here today? And so the knowledge of certain things is so important. You're only going to get that by your own farming of your own life, putting into yourself the things that you will have a nutrient-dense soil in your mind, and certain things you'll be able to tell, no, that's not going to be useful for me. Now, if all you want is a career like that, then the fullness of what I'm saying might not be that important to you. You might get bits of it because I know a lot about maintenance. I know a lot about if something's injured, how to fix it without medicine. There's different types of things. There's big pharmaceutical companies that think, oh, it's fantastic. Just put a little Roundup all over your yard and kill everything. Not a good outcome for the land, for the plants, or for those that consume it. You think look it up. And so there's certain things that a person might expose themselves to. It might be good for a while, but it might not be useful for the full development and blossoming of their own life. And this is the living organism. This is the living overlay system. There's conditions. I see my wife at night. She covers the garden. She has to make sure presidents, well, maybe, that predators don't come in. A lot of them have to have a very big fence put up. And then, she was out there doing slug patrol. These slugs get on the plants and start doing a real thing with them. You're thinking, what does this have to do with my playing? What's this have to do with my arbens? Oh, a lot. Many use arbens as a maintenance routine, don't they? Right? Well, how you're playing them will either maintain your not such useful habits or get you into a way that you'll be able to make the most out of that exercise. And for years, I'm very happy about this and thankful. I could take one exercise and make it into many. And that's how we can build the linings in ourselves and the flexibility in ourselves to be able to adapt. Arbens only goes like this. It's nonsense. Depends on why you're using it. To think that there's only one way to do something is not correct. At the same time, there are certain things, no matter what your concept is, it needs. Oh, I don't want the garden to have any nutrient-dense food. Good luck. I don't want a garden with earthworms. Good luck. And so there's things in ourselves that we have to quell in order for other things to grow, and we make sure we give those the right food. No matter what your concept is, yes, everyone needs air to play. You need a lip. You need a dental structure, all right? You need lungs, you need a support system. It's amazing how many things you need. If you've ever hurt something, like, had an operation in your abdomen of some kind, or lower, and you try, or something with your lungs not right, boy, you know right away, wow, I can't believe how much my support system was involved. That was just blowing air. So, we're going to look into this summer from a very organic perspective with very practical exercises for your playing. Okay? And what are the objectives? And what do you want out of your living playing? So your playing can be a representation of what you're actually connected to. And how could you not have a certain attitude that would help foster that growth? Because in a sense, you have to be a parent to yourself, a parent, a teacher, and a friend. So, huge, wonderful, fascinating topic, all based in what's natural. A human being is a total example of a 3 overlay system in a very profound sense, actually. So I look forward to diving into this with you. And the whole summer will be video, and starting with this one, June 9th, 2020, where next week will be a live Zoom session. And if you're interested in that, and you're not on my mailing list, please get in touch with me, and I'll send you the information. So, video, Zoom session. And then next week is the first Zoom session, and then after that will be video 2, and then next week's after that, Zoom session 2, and it'll continue like that all summer. Nature loves regularity. In the midst of all these things that can seem to cause change in a routine. It's amazing. And so hope to have a wonderful time with those who attend this summer. and hope to see you on some of the Zoom sessions. All the best.